right there. Can you see that? So with our shorter extension, we'll just pull that out. Nice long bolt. We'll go and put on our longer extension. This is the other one. That's that one. Okay, so now that we've removed the sway bar bushings on both sides of the lower subframe mounting bolts, the sway bar links, and both shocks, it's now time to go ahead and slide the sway bar out. One thing I'll mention is that on convertible models, if you're going to do a sway bar on a convertible model, there's one extra bolt in the very center of the rear subframe. The only way to get that out is to take the exhaust system off and all the heat shielding, or you can simply poke a hole in the soft aluminum heat shielding right in the center there and actually stick a long extension up in there and take that bolt out. That's kind of what we recommend and actually what we do. It's so much easier than taking off all that stuff just to remove a heat shield. And it really doesn't harm anything to poke a little hole in there. You can cover it up with some foil tape when you're done. So anyway, just a note on the convertible models, that's the deal. So now what we're going to be doing is slide the sway bar out towards us this way. You can see that it's pretty free and removable in here. And if you come down here, you can see where what we're going to be doing is trying to slide it over this hump here, okay? On both, there's one on each side. So this hump, and what we're going to do is push the subframe down in order to get at that. And sometimes you can use a pry bar to do that. The other thing that we're going to be doing is if you look in here, you can see that big wiring harness. We're going to kind of be rotating the bar out towards the back of the car once we get to that point so that it clears that wiring harness. So fairly easy. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to try and push down on this rear subframe section. You can do that just by pushing down on the suspension a little bit. And you can see how much that's moved right there. You can see how far that's come down already. Okay, that's probably enough to get the sway bar over. Yeah, maybe not enough yet. So what we're going to do is maybe... Okay, so now that we've pushed this subframe down quite a bit, we're just going to kind of pull it, pivot it out of there, and so you can see it's coming out. And now if you look, we're kind of lifting this bar sort of upward, just make sure you don't hit the car or anything. But so we're just kind of rotating it backwards, and that allows us to, we're getting in the way of our lift here a little bit. There we go. Okay, there's the factory bar. Okay, so now the process of putting the new bar in is sort of just the opposite. You're literally going to feed it back in the same way, get it over those two humps, and then put your bushings on and reconnect everything. So let's do that. Okay, and once again, we're getting around that wiring harness that's back there pretty easy. Sliding all the way down the other side. And when you get to the other side, you might have to go to the other side and actually pull the bar over that hump, which is what we'll do right now, because I'm having a hard time just pushing it that way. So let's walk to the other side real quick. I need a pry bar. Okay, there we go. So now the bar is basically in position, okay? So now what we're going to do is go ahead and grease those bushings and install the bushings. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take the little tube of grease that we ship with every sway bar. It's this really super sticky, ultra sticky, waterproof grease. So what we're going to do is dip our finger in there and then put it all inside the bushing and then go ahead and put the bushing on the bar. So make sure you have a rag handy because the stuff is super stringy and super sticky, you'll see. Basically just go ahead and get yourself a big blob of it on your finger. You can see how it's strings all over the place. It's like old gum. And then just go ahead and pry the bushing open. Ah, jeez. Get your finger in there. Just go ahead and coat that really good. And that's about it. Just kind of do this to like wrap the little strings up. Wipe your fingers off. Get this stuff everywhere. I'm going to slip it on the bar. And then when you put it on the bar, you want to put the side where the cut is facing backwards. So I'll go ahead and do that. Split it apart a little bit. Stick it on. That's pretty easy. And then we'll go ahead and put our bracket on. And put 2 13mm bolts in. And they're small bolts, so finger tighten them first. Get them started. Okay, we'll go ahead and use our air tool to snug those down again. Simple. And we'll go ahead and lightly tighten our sway bar link. Just put it in the middle position like we talked about. Just hand tighten that. Okay, then what we're going to do is go to the other side and do the same process, and then we'll come back and we'll sort of work on getting the subframe bolts started and turn back in again. Okay, so now that we've got the sway bar bushings installed, the sway bar installed, and the sway bar links lightly connected, what we're going to do is jack up the rear control arm, which is going to push the subframe up and back, somewhat close to its final position, and get the bolts kind of hand started. Sometimes you can do it by hand. You can just grab the rotor and lift. If you've got another person that can feed the bolts in while you're holding that wheel up. Or you can just use a jack, which is what we're going to do today. So we're just going to jack this wheel up to a certain height. You can kind of tell that once you get to a certain height here, you can tell when this is getting close to touching. Tell every time I go up a little higher, it's closer and closer that way. Okay, so now that we have this jacked up a little ways to kind of get things almost parallel, what we're going to do is kind of use a pry bar to sort of maybe move the suspension backwards and forwards a little bit based on where those two holes are lined up. So right now if I go and try and put this bolt in here, it's probably not lined up at all with where it needs to go in. Right, it's not. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take maybe this pry bar. We can put it in between the sway bar bracket or something to pry against. You can see as I pry this, it kind of goes back and forth, and you can see I just got the bolt in. So simply put it like that, and if you let go, the tension will just hold that bolt in place. You don't really have to stand there and hold it. But once you get it to that position, you can go ahead and let the jack down, get it out of the way. So that bolt will stay there. We'll go ahead and take our impact wrench and kind of cinch that up. Okay, so now that we got our first bolt in that kind of helps get that subframe aligned, we're not going to tighten it down all the way. We're going to leave it loose a little bit so we still have some movement in that subframe so we can get the other bolts started. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to see if we can get that other bolt in easily. Oh yeah. So that one's in. And so is the other one. So now what we'll do is tighten up the sway bar link itself. Once again, using the Allen key to hold the shaft from moving. Okay, that's about it. So now you can see how the sway bar works and functions. Okay, so now that we have the sway bar installed, we've got the bushings installed, the subframe bolts all reinstalled, the sway bar link installed. All we have to do is go ahead and reinstall the shocks on each side and we'll be complete. Now, once again, just to reiterate, to go out and drive the car, see how it handles, see if you like it, and if you need to make a change, it's fairly easy to do if you remember this one thing. You simply have to get both rear wheels off the ground in order to make a sway bar change. If you take one wheel off and try and do just one side at a time, the sway bar will be twisted and under torque, and you will not be able to do it. So you have to get both wheels off the ground and put the sway bar in a neutral position in order to go ahead and change that.